Welcome back. So in this lecture, we're going to use Mesh Configure View in our main view, where we had text create mesh. So we want to create a new mesh with a given number of rows and columns and a name. And I want to create a random matrix, okay? So we do have some work to do here. So let's say Mesh Configure View. And we need to enter these 4 parameters, okay? Now I'm going to want a new row, a new column, a mesh name, a new mesh name, and an onDismiss. So let's see which properties we have so far. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up. So we have new mesh name, and I also want to have new row and new column. So let's say new row will be an integer. Now I said the minimal value that I want is 2. So I'm going to set that to 2, and new column also at least 2. So all of this will be related, so parameters for mesh configure view or new mesh view. So we're going to be using these values. So if we go back down to the sheet, right down here, we can add $new row, $new column. It's very important not to mess this up. For instance, when I was creating this app, I think I used new row twice or new column twice, and then it just didn't work properly. Okay, great. Now for the mesh name, let's say $new mesh name. And onDismiss is where we're going to be adding the new mesh. Okay, great. So let's create the data. Now we want a random color matrix, and I want some random points. Okay, so I'm going to define a color array of type string. And for now, let's just leave this, let's let this be empty. And let's define some points of type simd2 float. And this will be also empty. So we need some random colors, and actually don't want random points. I want some kind of evenly distributed default points. Okay. After that, once we have these values set, we can set the current mesh model to be equal to mesh model, Control M, and the name will be new mesh name. I'll use new row over here, new column over here. And now it would be convenient if we had a different initializer that could accept a color array and points. So I'm going to enter an empty string. So we have a lot to do here. So to do, we need a random color matrix. To do, we need some extension of simd2. And finally, another to do, we need another initializer for convenience. Okay? And after that, finally, we can actually insert using the model context. So model context dot insert the current mesh model, and I would like to add a do try model context dot save and catch print error on save. Supposedly, I don't need this part of the code, but currently in Swift Data, this doesn't always update right away. So I'm adding this code, but in theory, the default setting should be that if you insert, it just inserts and saves. So I'm going to make sure that we're saving. And once we're done with that, let's set the new mesh name to an empty string. And we're good. Okay. Now, if we run this, this is probably going to create something that will crash because we have an empty string here, right? Should not be empty, or we should use a different initializer. And we have empty color arrays, and this is just trouble. Okay. So in the next lecture, we'll implement the random color matrix. After that, we'll work on the default points. After that, we'll create another initializer. So slowly but surely, we're going to progress, and eventually we'll have a really nice app. Great, so have an amazing day, and see you next time.